Hello, and welcome back to the Nourish with Purpose podcast. So how are you? How are you doing? I hope you're having a great Wednesday, or whenever you are listening to this episode. Just know that I am grateful that you're here. If you are enjoying the podcast, I would just ask that you would leave a rating and or review on either Spotify or Apple Podcast. It really does help me out so much, and I love to get feedback and know what you're thinking as well. If you do that, send it my way because you'll then get entered into the Wellness Bundle giveaway that I'm drawing for at the end of the year. And if you post about the podcast on your Instagram or Facebook story, you also get additional entries. Just make sure you tag me so I can see it, because nothing makes me happier than seeing what you have to say about the podcast and knowing that you're listening and that there are real people on the other side of this microphone listening to what I have to say and share with you. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into a catch up for the last week. This last week has been, well, I'll get into it when I talk about nourishing my mind, body, and spirit, because I feel like this last week there have been a lot of good things that have happened. Some highlights: my friend Delaney came to where I'm living and we went thrifting and antiquing together. Had some interesting experiences, but it was a really good time. I love buying secondhand. My husband and I, we each read our own books for about 2.5 hours on Sunday. It was so relaxing and so nice to just spend that time sitting on the couch. And I noticed such a significant difference sitting on the couch reading for 2.5 hours than if we would have sat on the couch and watched TV for 2.5 hours. I just felt re-energized and positive and happy afterwards, not drained and upset and anxious. And I just feel like TV recently has been doing that to me. Maybe it's with all the Halloween stuff going on. I don't know. This might be very specific to me, but I was definitely a kid that was not really allowed to watch Disney Channel during Halloween. I know some people that just love this time of year, and I love fall. But for me, I just cannot get behind the spooky Halloween stuff. It's just growing up, even like Halloween Town, I remember my parents didn't really like me watching that stuff. And my parents weren't really strict. It was just not what they wanted me to watch. And so I've never gotten into all of the classic Halloween movies. So if there's any like positive, happy Halloween movies that you know of, please send me them, because I would love to watch something happy on Halloween and not something like dark and demonic and terrifying. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's why I am not really in the urge to watch TV recently. Other highs, I spent Thursday in Lincoln, and so I got to get coffee with my friend Katie and go for a walk that morning with my friend Megan. So I really just had a very social day. I also did a grocery store navigation session with a client. So I saw a lot of people on Thursday, and I always try to make the most of when I'm going to Lincoln or Omaha, which are the surrounding like major cities in Nebraska, just because I have a lot of people that I love there and I want to see them. So getting into how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit. This is kind of tricky for me because I feel like right now I'm doing a lot of self-sabotaging, and I'm going to talk about that in today's episode too, because I'm talking all things coaching, what I actually do as a job, but it's not even just that, because I don't want this to sound like a coaching pitch. So if you're like, I have no interest in working with you ever, totally cool. This is not me pitching anything. This is me just telling you about my experience being a business owner at 24 years old and all of the things that I've learned and the struggles that I've been going through and have gone through in the past. And so it's really going to be more so intended to educate you on what I'm passionate about and what I love. And also, if you are interested in ever starting your own business, hopefully it provides some insight into what that could look like for you. Obviously, everybody's journey is going to be different, but I wanted to give that little disclaimer too, because if you're listening, you're like, oh my gosh, this is just going to be a coaching pitch. Please be reassured it's not. I'm not trying to pitch you anything. I'm not saying you ever have to work with me or that you should feel guilt tripped into it. I just like to talk about what I do, and a lot of people don't really understand what it is that I do day to day. And so it'll be a good episode, and I'm excited. But getting into, again, how I'm nourishing my mind, body, and spirit. With nourishing my body, I've been doing a really good job with that. And Nathan, my husband, and I, we really do. We eat really good food, and that is something I'm passionate about. I love making things from scratch. I love spending time in the kitchen, making things with intention behind them. I love hosting people in my home and making meals. I love all of that. That is always the area that I've struggled, and now I feel stronger than that in ever. Or strong, oh my gosh, stronger in that than ever. Maybe I had said that right. Well, anyway, how I'm nourishing my mind. This is where my struggle comes in, because I feel like there are a lot of things that I need to be doing, and I'm either just not doing them, or I get sucked into the social media scroll that makes me think that everything that I'm doing is wrong, that I'm not on the right path, that I am not doing enough, that I'm not helping enough people, that it's just that constant comparison cycle, and I'm so sick and tired of it. And I think that this is because there just are not boundaries there. Yeah, I've loosely put boundaries around being on my phone, but when a lot of your job consists of being on your phone and checking in with clients and messaging people back that have messaged you on Instagram, don't get me wrong, it's fun and I love it, but I am spending too much time on that I'm not actually pushing myself to be aligned with the goals that I know I need to create for myself, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like you need to be doing the right thing, but you can't bring yourself to do it because it's easier to do the wrong thing, which is just mindlessly scroll and not be as disciplined as I need to be. So that is an area that I really need growth. And I'm sharing all of this especially because I feel like when I record these, it's always la-di-da, all these wonderful things that are happening in my life. And my life is really good. I'm not upset with what my life circumstances look like in any way, but sometimes it's comforting to know that even people that's profession is helping people don't get it right and don't do everything right. And I like to be transparent with people. I don't see any sense in acting like I'm perfect because it's just not the case, and I'm not doing everything perfect by any means. So how I'm nourishing my body, or not my body, how I'm nourishing my spirit. I am continuing to read through the Bible. Mostly the New Testament is where I'm at. I read through it, and this is a practice I'd like to add in, is actually sitting then in silence after I read my Bible for 5 minutes. No distractions, no noise, nothing. And seeing what comes to me, because I'm really lacking that conversation with God, through prayer and being silent. I mean, if you think about how many times in our day that we have constant notifications, people talking to us, lights on, sounds, very rarely do we spend 5 minutes just with ourselves. And so I'm going to add that practice in. It's one I've talked about with a handful of clients the last week. And I feel like it's kind of like me telling myself I need to do it when I'm talking to them about doing it, because it's something, again, I know I need to, I just haven't. So, oh my gosh, Luna. That is Luna's little squeaky toy. If you hear that, I'm recording this late in the evening. I was just feeling inspired to get on and talk. And so she is playing her little heart out, and I'm just going to let it happen, truthfully, because she spends so much of the day just looking out the window while we work on our... Okay, Luna, can I have your toy? Okay, so getting into the bulk of today's episode, I'm going to talk about what I do as a coach, but also the lessons that I've learned throughout this. And the reason I really wanted to record this is because regardless of if you have never started a business, or if you're starting one right now, or if you're well seasoned, I think you can probably relate to a lot of this. And that's because when you create something of your own, regardless of if it's a gift to give to somebody, or if it's a business, or if it's a tangible product you've created, you are going to, at some point, I would guess, compare it to somebody else's. Right? It's not going to look good enough. It's not going to be shiny enough. It's not going to be fancy enough. And that was really where I've been the last week. So I have been so blessed to have the best month. September was the best month for my business yet. I had 7 new clients join working with me, one-on-one coaching, my program, Nourish to Flourish. And it was incredible to welcome that many women into my space to work with one-on-one for the next 16 weeks. That is always really hard for me because I always know, and this is the pattern I've known in business or noticed in my business, is that the next month is just going to be slower. So right now I'm nearing capacity. Like I physically can't really take on too many more clients. I will take them on as I can, but September was such a good month and I had existing clients already that I am kind of at that point, right? So I'm not actively searching, okay, I need to get clients. And that's never, it sounds so gross because that is just not the type of entrepreneur, I guess you would say, that I am. I'm not that type. If you want to work with me, amazing. I want to welcome you into my space. I want you to get help. I want you to feel supported. I want you to be comforted. I want you to be encouraged. I want that for you. I truly, truly do. And you're going to notice how passionate I get in this episode. But that is what I want for you. I am not in the convincing business. And that's what I tell myself. I am not going to cold DM someone. I'm not going to... And cold DM means you just message someone out of the blue and say, hey, I'm running this coaching program. You should totally join. That is so disgusting to me. It is so disgusting to me. And I've worked with so many business coaches that tell me, well, that's what you have to do to grow a successful business, yada, yada. I don't believe that. And I think that it's really gross. And in the past, I probably would have done that or maybe did that a few times because it's what you're told to do when you work with somebody who specializes in business coaching, but that's not what I do now. I tell myself that every day. I am not in the convincing business. I want somebody that wants help. I want to work with somebody that wants to be helped. My biggest desire is that when you decide that you need help, that I am the person you think of. That's really what I want my business to be. I want to be that person that you think of, oh my gosh, I've been listening to her podcast. I've been following her for long enough. I feel miserable in my own skin. I have a terrible relationship with food. I know and trust that she will help me out. That is what I hope. Okay. So just kind of like from an outside perspective, I hope that is what you think of when you think of what I do. Now, if you're like, but what do you do? Let me talk about that too. So what I tell people I do is I say I am an anti-inflammatory focused nutrition coach. For a lot of people, that makes the most sense. When we hear the word nutrition, it all kind of aligns. Okay. And so what I do is I focus on finding the area of your body that is highly inflamed, and we implement the tools, the foods, the habits surrounding that area that need to be put into place for you to find true healing. So because what I do is so deeply ingrained into functional medicine, I'm not somebody who pushes the medication. I am not anti-Western medicine in any way, but I do truly believe that there are ways to find healing that don't include having to be on medications for the rest of your life or for you to have to get surgery. If you have not listened to my own personal, raw, and real story, that is episode 1 of this whole podcast. And I'll give a little Cliff Notes version, but in high school, it was actually into early college, but I had back pain in high school. Into college, I learned I had fractures in my L4, L5 vertebrae and a bulging disc. And at age 18, the doctor I had gone to was ready to cut me open and give me back surgery right then and there. Luckily, my dad got a second opinion, or we did that together. And I went through 2 rounds of steroid injections, found no relief. So I was living with chronic pain for about 3-ish years of my life and absolutely miserable. I hated being in my own skin. My relationship with food was always kind of weird, and it got even weirder in college. And when I moved out into an apartment with some roommates, I really decided I was going to try to heal my body, but I did it in a way that wasn't super healing. So in college, I had gained about 35 pounds from my freshman to sophomore year, and I knew I needed to change because I was so uncomfortable in my skin, like I had said, but my back was also so inflamed. I was always so uncomfortable, and that was because I was eating really crappy food. But then when I moved into living in an apartment, I started to overexercise and then undereat. So I was spending 7 days a week, spending about an hour and a half in the gym every single day. If I missed a day, felt like life or death. I ate very little food. There was a period of time when I was thinking back on this actually. I don't think I had had pasta in probably 8 months, 6 months. Like I was very hyper aware of what I was eating in a very, very unhealthy way. And I needed control over everything that I ate. If I didn't have that control, I would almost break down in tears and get very, very stressed out. And I remember one time I was in the car with my parents and they were talking about supper, and I'm like, well, I can't eat that. And they're like, well, why can't you eat that? And I was like, well, because I don't have control over what I'm eating. And I think that was the first time I probably admitted to my parents that I was really struggling with my relationship with food and that there was an issue. I'd also talked to my roommate about that as well. And that was the first time I really opened up to anybody about it, other than with Nathan, my now husband at the time. He was just my boyfriend. And it was really, really hard for me to heal that relationship with food while also managing chronic pain. And, when you live with chronic pain, for me, it was about 3 years. I would wake up in the middle of the night crying, absolutely miserable. And then I started to find healing. And in being what I thought was just very fit, which was just an unhealthy relationship with food and exercise, I physically felt pretty good. I mean, honestly, my chronic pain was gone. And I didn't wake up in the middle of the night crying anymore because my back hurt so bad. But I was never, ever, ever happy with my body, with myself, with what I ate. And so that stress alone, I went through a period of time where I felt like I had the stomach flu. It was probably 6 months after I had gotten married, period of time when I was living in Omaha, just very unhappy with my life and myself. And I just remember when I couldn't have control over food and what I was eating, and I couldn't exercise one day, it was like full breakdown mode and pretty just a terrible state to be in. And if you relate in any sense to that, healing from that, it's like, well, who do I turn to? I didn't think at that time that I needed a therapist. I didn't need to go to the doctor. I didn't really think they could heal me, And so that was when I got certified to be an integrative health practitioner. And I learned about this whole realm of holistic health. And I was just so into it. I just got goosebumps because I was just, and I am. I think it is absolutely it's not even breakthrough news because it's all things that have been practiced for hundreds of years. But Western medicine really has taken over in the last 20-ish years where although, yes, this is not discrediting the medical field, they are intelligent people with so much knowledge, and they have the genuine desire to help people. And I'm in no way ever disrespecting that. But I think there are alternatives to medicine. And to become an integrative health practitioner and have the ability to not only help people heal their body physically, but have the tools to help them heal mentally was incredible. Because no, I am not a certified mental health practitioner. I am not in any way, stepping outside of my territory. But there is so much healing that comes in talking to somebody about what you've been struggling with. And I did not have that person. I had my husband, I had my mom, I confided in them a lot, but I didn't have that person where I was, able to tell them, hey, I struggle with my relationship with food. I right now hate my body and I cry when I can't make my own food. If I would have had somebody to talk through that piece, in addition to helping me heal with chronic pain and using food as the medicine for healing, I would have saved myself so many years of trial and error. But at the same time, I would not be where I am today or have the business that I have today where I get to do that for other women. And that is the part that makes me emotional. Like brings me to tears. My eyes get watery just talking about this, because when you are in a low point and you don't know what person that you can talk to, you don't have that person, I am able to provide a service to somebody who struggles with their relationship with food, just needs control. Maybe you're chronically stressed, maybe you're dealing with chronic pain, or maybe you have digestive issues. A lot of my chronic pain was healed when I learned that I had an intolerance to dairy, and that was inflaming my body. It was bringing on the acne I was experiencing. It was hurting my body internally because I could not digest dairy properly. And I didn't learn that until I was 22. I don't even know at this point. I mean, it feels like it's been forever, but I know it hasn't, because I've not always been as rigid with not having dairy as I am these days. And that is because if I have dairy, I wake up the next morning and my back hurts. And it sounds woo, and it sounds crazy, and it's going to all sound like it's in my head to some people. But when you are eating foods that you are sensitive to or intolerant to, you are putting your body in a state of inflammation. For me, it's mostly digestive inflammation. Not only does my gut hurt, do I have an upset stomach, but it translates into my musculoskeletal inflammation. And that is what is insane about learning about what inflammation is and truly how it can show up, because the source of all disease is inflammation. And so as a coach, with that being kind of my primary area that I focus on, is covering a lot of ground. Like, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I thought I was niching down with like nutrition and inflammation, and now I'm like talking to women about their limiting beliefs and the words that they tell themselves repetitively about their bodies. And now I'm getting into, well, why do they have brain fog? Well, it's because they are drinking caffeine before their breakfast. Like, I get to play detective because I don't have such a specific niche, but my niche is inflammation. And there are 7 areas that inflammation can show up in your body. And I want to go over that and really talk to you about what the coaching experience looks like when you message me and you're like, hey, I'm really interested in this. I'm struggling with this, this, and this. How could you help me? We're going to go from there. Okay. So this is just to give you kind of an understanding of what I actually focus on. Okay. So when you message me that, first, I'm going to ask more about you, more about your health, more about maybe things you've tried in the past that have worked, things that haven't. And sometimes we do set up a discovery call. That is where you get 30 minutes to talk to me about what you're struggling with and I take notes and I kind of start connecting the dots of what you're telling me your day of eating looks like, what type of sleep you get, what type of job you have, what your social calendar looks like. And I can start kind of dissecting, okay, this is where I think this might be drawing from. On that call, if you decide, hey, I really love talking to you, but I don't think I can maybe financially do this right now. No problem. What we do is we come up with 3 action steps for you to do moving forward. So if you get anything from a discovery call, at least it is 3 steps you can start implementing without my help, without my support, that you can start tackling on your own. Maybe before we would start working together one day. But let's say you decide, yes, I want to do this. So from there, we schedule your initial call. So we get a one-on-one call. And in the program I run one program, and it's Nourish to Flourish. And that is my one-on-one signature coaching program that focuses on targeting inflammation and healing your relationship with food. So it's kind of a double whammy. I will also later get into the other things that I do, but this is like the bulk of my business is my one-on-one coaching. And so with one-on-one coaching, we set up that call, we get on the call, we do a full health history, which is talking about, diets you've maybe tried in the past, the medications you're on, your eating habits, your top 8 worst symptoms that you're experiencing. We talk about that all. And then we take the inflammation assessment. So this is something we do through Zoom. It is a series of questions that help me to see and understand where inflammation is coming from in your body based on some pretty specific questions. So from there, we get a starting point. We get those numbers, right? So each category scores a number. If it is above an 8, that means it is an area of pretty high inflammation. And if you score above an 8 in more than one of the 7 categories that inflammation can show up in your body, you are considered polyinflammatory. And I always tell people this doesn't mean you need to run to your doctor in a panic because you're chronically ill. It just means that there's a lot going on in your body. There's a lot of stress in your body, a lot of things manifesting in your body that if you don't do something right now, it could lead to pretty long-term harm and health concerns. So that's mostly why we do it. I want to get those numbers because I want to have numbers to compare to in the future. So we also take that assessment at week 8 and then again at the end of 16 weeks to see what your progress is throughout the duration of the program. So we do that initial call. With the Nourish to Flourish program, you get 8 one-on-one calls with me. So 8 times we get on Zoom for an hour and we talk about everything that's going on, how I can help you. On those calls, we talk about your highs, your lows. We create an action plan for the next 2 weeks, things for you to really focus on. And we also talk about the modules that you've been working on. So on my website, you get access to this little portal where all of the other clients are as well. They can't see that you're on there. Like there's no overlap of seeing other people on the portal. So it's 100% confidential, but you get access to this portal and there are 16 weeks or 16 modules of a podcast and a workbook. And this is because, and I tell this to people, it's a bad business model because I want you to be independent. There's a lot of coaches that I've worked with in the past where they want to enable you to the point where you start to believe that you can't do anything if you don't have them there. And that feels grimy and gross to me. And so I have these podcasts and these workbooks for you to listen to before we get on a one-on-one call because it is crucial to me that you are learning. So what I've learned through all of my certifications, through my own research, through my own health struggles is put into different podcasts that are on different topics. And that's what you'll listen to. They're like 20 minutes long. And that is because I want you to learn. I want you to know after, even if we work together for longer than 16 weeks, there's nothing wrong with you or wrong with doing that. But you shouldn't need me. My goal is that you never need me, because I want you to find true healing, and I want you to have the tools and the knowledge to know, okay, if I feel this way 6 to 8 hours after I ate this food, what is that a sign of? Oh, well, maybe I'm intolerant or have a food sensitivity to dairy, because I ate a big bowl of ice cream 6 to 8 hours ago and I still feel gross, and the next day my back really, really hurts. It's like all of the detective work that I get to do on my end is so fun to really dive into what's going on. And my goal is that you build up the tools so you can do that too. I don't think health needs to be something that is so restrictive to doctors and nurses and dietitians. I think there's so much to be learned from people like myself who get certified and they have the education to talk about what they're doing. I have the authority, and it is within my realm of certifications that I work with women in the way that I do. And I want you to have those tools. So a long-winded way of me saying I want you to be successful, and I want you to also feel educated along the way. At week 5 or week 6, for the people that work with me, that live near me, we go on a one-on-one grocery store navigation session. And I also offer this in an independent service. You don't have to do Nourish to Flourish, but with this, we go to the grocery store, we go shopping, and we find those products that I like, know, and trust, and that align with eating in an anti-inflammatory way, right? Focusing on whole foods, grains, finding swaps for maybe your favorite salad dressing, or finding a good peanut butter. It sounds like something that shouldn't be as difficult as it is, but our food system, this is going to be a whole other episode, but they are not doing us any service. And so that is why it gets to the point where we have to be really, really aware of what we're eating, and really, really aware of how we're fueling our body. And I hate that it's like that. My job shouldn't even exist, but it does, because so many people have been failed by the food system and the lack of quality that they are providing for Americans. And so we kind of cut through the bull crap together. We learn about health halos, the products that are marketing you or marketing to you in a way that makes you think they're really good for you. And then we look at the label and we learn they're lying and they're not telling the truth about what is in this product. Those are the fun things that I get to work with you and look at. And so we do that. And then we really spend, just the next weeks, every other week, we have a one-on-one call. And we continue to create action plans for you and create such sustainable habits that they feel long lasting. I was talking to a client today who has really always done diets that follow numbers. So they require you to weigh yourself every so often. They require you to track calories or count macros. And she came to this program and she's like, it's so hard for me to get around the fact that I'm not failing if I'm not tracking numbers. And wow, that is so true for me, who tracked my food intake for 2 years. That is not normal to track food for 2 years. And a lot of people that do diets like Weight Watchers or Optivia or, oh boy, I could get into it. There are specific coaches I see where you are tracking numbers because they're physique based. I don't have any, I don't know how to say that, because it's not that they don't mean well. And it's not like there's not a place for a few of those things, right? If you are very into bodybuilding, yeah, you're going to have to track things. My coaching, though, is not for somebody who wants to be jacked and shredded, because I don't have you track calories. I don't have you track your weight. I don't have you even track the amount of grams of protein you are consuming or the amount of water that you're drinking, because we learned this tool called the mind-body connection, And we learn how powerful that is compared to all these numbers that try to make you think that you're either successful or you're failing, because that does not sit right with me. I still to this day, and this is something I really don't ever share, but I haven't weighed myself since I was at the doctor last, and I was at the doctor last probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Not saying don't go to the doctor, but saying I don't weigh myself. And the only time I weigh myself is when I go to the doctor. And still to this day, the thought of stepping on the scale really is a challenge for me. Like, it really makes me almost sick to think about stepping on the scale, because I know that as soon as I would look at that number, I would instantly fall back into those negative habits that I had before, of thinking I needed to track everything that I ate, that I needed to completely avoid any pastas or breads or peanut butters or nut butters or anything that was fatty. I needed to avoid because of a number on a scale, because it would make me feel sick if the number was any higher than what it was when I stepped on last time. And that's not to say that you have not healed if things like that still kind of like bother you, right? Tracking food, I don't have clients do that either, because do you want to spend your time? I mean, think of how limited time people even have to spend on themselves, let alone spending how many minutes a day tracking your food and your water intake, when in reality, you know how much your body needs. Right? We talk about portion sizes. We talk about listening to the mind-gut connection, right? Is your hunger signals? Is your stomach growling? No. Okay, then maybe you can sit back and just talk to your family at dinner time after you eat your one plate, and then wait 5 to 10 minutes. See if your stomach is telling you, hey, I'm hungry again, before just jumping up for seconds because it's what your mind really, really wants in that moment. It's using your thirst signal of, man, I have not drank enough water today. And it's not saying we don't do calculations. We do protein calculations. We do water intake calculations to see what your body specifically needs, but it's more so about bringing awareness to what you're currently maybe not eating or drinking enough of. That is why I don't use numbers. And I had a moment this last week where I was talking to my husband about how it stresses me out maybe that I don't do enough numbers or tracking, because clients can't constantly be seeing their success, right? Their success comes with how they physically feel, or it comes with seeing the inflammation levels go down every 8 weeks through using the inflammation assessment. But I'm like, well, maybe they're just not maybe I should have them track stuff. And then I actually sat with myself, and my husband does a good job of doing this when he can, tell I'm like spiraling into what I know is not authentic to me. He's like, I think you just need to sit down with yourself and think about what you really want your business to look like. Because there are a lot of coaches out there that are having their clients do all this tracking, and it's getting really overwhelming and really stressful. And my goal is that when people come into this, they feel a sense of calm and that they feel like they're taken care of. And I feel really good about the feedback I've gotten, because I work with women of all ages. I mean, really, like, how I would say my youngest client was 17. My oldest client has been 68 or 70, no, in her 70s. And when she got online on my website, she's like, it was just so easy to navigate. This is all so comprehensible, and it all just makes so much sense. Like, what you're telling me just actually makes sense for once. And I'm like, thank goodness, because there is way too much confusion and crap around the health industry and around coaches and around people asking their clients to do things that I just don't think are truly what we should be doing forever. We shouldn't be weighing ourselves. If I have a client that's struggling with the scale, I mean, I've had clients that would weigh themselves multiple times a day, go from that to not even having a desire to step on the scale. Not because they don't like what they're going to see, but because they feel good enough that ultimately their goal when they came in was to lose weight, that goal shifts towards, I want to feel as good as I feel after the 16 weeks forever. And it sounds maybe like corny or cheesy that, they want to feel that way forever, but they truly do. It goes from wanting to have numerical success to having internal success and such joy around how they feel, not only with their body physically, but mentally in their relationship with food, because that is a huge piece of the puzzle as well, is mentally, So throughout this time, another way I support clients too is through Voxer. So you have text communication access to me. This is another way for you to continue to feel supported even when we're not doing a one-on-one call, because there's so much of that time in between where I would hate for you to not feel like you had somebody to talk to if you were really, really struggling. And a time that I think back to when this was a really crucial piece is we do this process in Nourish to Flourish where you remove and replace. So I'm not the type of coach that says you have to completely eliminate anything out of your diet, because I practice balance every single day. I promote balance in your lifestyle. So we do this process of removing and replacing, and it's 5 weeks where we remove, for example, highly processed sugars and we replace them with natural sugars. And you track your symptoms and you track how you feel. At the end of 5 weeks, you're going to feel pretty darn good because you're not filling your body with the things that made you feel really crappy before. And so I'm thinking back to this example of when text communication was crucial, because I had one client who she was somebody who had previously really struggled with her relationship with food. And I knew going into it, the concept of removing and replacing might be really hard because she was somebody that would go all in, right? So I believe it was the week of like caffeine and alcohol. She was like, I drank coffee on accident, and she was really freaking out about it. And it just led me back to spiraling out of control into having to completely remove everything out of my diet and restrict myself. And she had texted me that, and I'm like, okay, I want you to take a deep breath. Let's stop. Just stop where you are. Don't remove and replace anything. I want you to keep eating how you feel comfortable eating, because this is a client too. We had worked up towards actually eating 3 meals a day. And that was a huge, huge, huge piece of her success. But I'm like, let's stop doing it. Like, stop. And if she wouldn't have texted me that and had access to me, who knows where that would have led. And so that is just a really special piece, is that I can help you in real time with things that you are in real time struggling with. So I would guess, I've been talking now for 47 minutes, but in a nutshell, that is really what a majority of my days look like. I'm meeting with clients. I am talking them through their struggles. I'm reaching out to them through text. I do a lot of that. I also do the social media piece. And this is something that I started in September. And that is group exercise classes. And I lead 2 classes in person. And when I tell you it fills my cup like none other, it truly does. I do a functional movement training class, and then I do a Pilates and strength class on Mondays and Wednesdays. And when you work online, and although yes, I'm talking to real people through Zoom, having in-person connections being built is such a special experience. And I think that is why I feel so darn happy in the beginning of my week, is because I get to exercise and move my body with women and help women feel strong and confident and good in their skin. And that is just honestly the coolest thing. I also have a platform, Balance, where there are workouts, anti-inflammatory recipes, and that's really a lot of it. I think there's maybe at this point 58 exercises or workouts that you can do with me in real time. And there's just a lot of stinking recipes on there too. I started coaching in 2021, actually, and I ran this 7-day self-health journey I believe is what it was called. If you were in, or if you were a part of that, please message me, because I would love to know how you're doing, because it's been so long since I messaged you, I'm sure, because it was 2-3 years ago. And that was the first thing I ever ran. And then that December, I did a December program. Again, I think it was like $20, and you got workouts 3 days a week and recipes, and it was all done through Facebook. And then I progressed to starting my website, and in March of 2022, I launched findyourdivinepurpose.com, and I started to kind of mold my business. I really wanted to go into worksite wellness and get more into the corporate space, which I would still love. If you are a business owner or you work for a company that wants somebody to come in and talk about health and lead exercises, I truly love that. But I just really found a niche with one-on-one coaching and nutrition-focused coaching. And for a long time, I had a really, really hard time, actually, until I worked with a business coach this almost a year ago, I suppose. And it was hard for me to find what it was that I wanted to put all of my energy into. Because if you know me, I like to do a lot of things and a lot of different things. But to find an area where I can be supportive to women and help them through and give them in 16 weeks and beyond everything that I so badly wish I would have had when I was not only in chronic pain, but struggling with my relationship with food and understanding or trying to figure out why I always felt so crappy because of how I removed food from my diet and added it back in and replaced it with other products. Like, if I would have had those tools, it wouldn't have been a 3 to 4 year journey, and it wouldn't have led me to where I am today. That's for sure, but it also would have been so much easier on my body, on my mindset about myself, if I would have just had somebody to guide me along the way, which is where what I'm doing now is so incredibly unique and so incredibly special to me. And I think if you are looking into going into your own business, there are a few things that I will tell you, and this is not coming from a seasoned entrepreneur, and I really hate that word. It just sounds corny to me, but what I would tell you is that if you are wanting to start your own business, you have to be wholeheartedly aligned with what you're doing. And this I've noticed when it comes to exercise. I wanted to create a exercise platform solely online and work with clients through that. And I noticed really quickly how disconnected I felt to it and how exercise wasn't really a priority for a lot of people. And that just was not something I was aligned with. I also then when I started working with my business coach, thought that I wanted to get into meditation and manifestation. And if you start looking into, the spiritual realm, it's like, no, it doesn't really align with like my Christian morals and values. And I have built a business on the foundation of Christ, and through navigating my own purpose is where I came up with divine purpose, right? Knowing that at different points in our life, we are going to have different roles. But I think something I want people to be consistent with is their health and their well-being and how they physically feel. And I say this often, but you cannot pour from an empty cup. And so, no, our purpose is not a job or a specific role, but if you find a lot of purpose in taking care of other people, if you are not taking care of yourself, you're not going to wholeheartedly and divinely live out your purpose. And it's also, our purpose has been given to us from God. And ultimately, His purpose will prevail for our lives. And as much as I so often crave control, I know that what I want isn't always the right way. And I'm learning that, and I'm navigating that these days too, because there's a lot of times that you're not going to feel like you're doing everything right, or you're not going to feel like you're giving enough to other people. You're not going to feel like you are valued. You're not going to feel heard. You're not going to feel listened to. You're not going to feel cared about, because chances are before you even listened to this episode, you had no heckin' idea what a holistic health coach was. I mean, just a big piece of that is when people don't even know what you do and you've built a business on it, it's hurtful. But how often do I take the time to really explain what I do? And so that's where podcasting is very special, because I can explain all of this to you, and hopefully you've gained something from listening to me. Another thing I would tell you, I'm getting so sidetracked. There's just so many thoughts coming to mind, but another thing that I would tell you is if you're wanting to start your own business is that just know it's not rainbows and unicorns. And I would hope by now that is like made well aware, but okay, let me backtrack. I wake up every single day of my life so overjoyed with the position I'm in. Like, I don't dread a single day of my life. And that was not my reality in any sense, even a year ago, when I was still working part-time jobs at a hospital. Before that, I was at a PT or physical therapy and occupational therapy clinic. And I felt like there was no purpose for my life and that I would never make a business. And I was so stressed about the financial side of having a business. And just know, like, there is it's so much harder than it will ever look on the outside. My day-to-day schedule looks pretty relaxed. You know, you might find me on a Monday morning, not starting my day until 11 o'clock when I have my first coaching call. Wow. Like, wouldn't some people die to have that schedule? Yeah, I get it. But that also means that some evenings I am also working till 9 p.m. And luckily, that's not so much anymore. That was in the beginning stages. I was really burning the midnight oil. I worked about 25 hours a week, and then I put in probably another 35 to 40 at home working on my business. And I just remember when I resigned from my one job at the hospital, telling my boss, like, I'm working like 60 hours a week. It's just not all here. And he's like, oh, I had no idea. I'm like, yeah, like I'm done. Like I'm exhausted. I'm drained, and I can't commute anymore. I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't love everything about my job. But you're just never going to hear somebody really tell you that, right? So like on the outside, things can look shiny and beautiful. But like I had just said, this weekend, I was in bed spiraling to my husband about, I'm not doing this. I need to add this into my business. I'm not giving enough. I'm not, okay. You know, like that's when you need to have people in your life that are like, hold on, you are doing more than enough. Think of the people that you have already helped tremendously. Think of, even if you are a drop in the bucket for a client, how much value they are getting leaving, working with you. Like things my husband's just reassuring me. I'm like, in that moment, I didn't want to hear it because I was so disgusted with my business. And it's like, how? When you get to help other women through what you always struggled so much with and you needed help with, how is that something that's not enough? That is more than enough. If I would have had what I do, I would have had a total different trajectory of my health for years. And it's just bringing yourself back to your why and why you're doing that. And I think a lot of people always say like, well, find your why. And you're like, well, where the heck am I going to find my why? You know, at least that's how I felt for a while too. And so this is just kind of like a final closer, but if you have ever worked with me in the past and been along my journey in any way, shape, or form, if you were a part of the 7-day self-health journey that I ran back in October of 2021, just know every single person has been such a crucial part of this journey for me and helping me navigate what I wanted things to look like. If you are listening and you are interested in getting some one-on-one help, you can always message me, and I don't mean even financially investing in yourself, although I would recommend everybody invest in themselves financially when it comes to their health. I've done it in the past. I would always recommend it. But even if you just have a quick question about something, or you just need those 3 action steps to get started on your way, I am always more than happy to talk to you. And I would love, to work with you as well, if that is something that you have any interest in. Like I had said, I am taking on clients as I can, but I can't guarantee I have a lot of spots open for one-on-one coaching. And that's just me being honest, because I'm one person and I'm still a one-woman show doing this. And I love what I do, but I need to find the balance in what I do as well. So something I'm continuously learning and developing, but balance is always a positive to develop around a business, so I can do this long term and keep adding in services that I kind of have in the works, but not really going to share too much about, because nothing is set in stone. Life is always changing and things can happen, but I'm really excited for what's to come. And if you are starting any sort of business and you're like, hey, can you tell me how you got started? I hope this was helpful, but also message me, because I've worked with 2 different business coaches for over a year. And I feel like I've learned a lot from them that I could pass to other people. Although, no, I will never claim that I have the most perfect business model in any sense. I do have a lot of insight. And before you go pay somebody to give you advice, I'll give you advice for free. If you want it, right? Totally cool if not. Anyway, I hope that didn't just sound like a bunch of rambling. I hope you can tell how passionate I am about this, how much I feel like I could talk forever, considering this episode is so long. And I hope you've still stuck around, because we're going to go ahead and close this episode in prayer. And I will just let you continue to enjoy the day you have ahead. So, dear Lord, just thank you. Thank you so much for the ability to talk to who is ever listening to this podcast, and the reach that it has had, and the women that I have gotten to connect with. Lord, I just ask that you continue to be with my business and the businesses of any woman or man listening to this episode, and that they feel so deeply rooted in you that it allows their business to flourish. And I just ask too that they feel aligned with the work that they're doing. And if somebody is listening to this episode and they feel so misaligned with what they're doing, they give themselves permission to find what it is that truly overwhelms them with so much joy and gratitude for you and the role that they have in this life. I ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen. As always, I'm so grateful for you, so thankful that you're here. If you're interested with following along with my life outside of the podcast, you can find me at Bailey Seaton on Instagram and Facebook, Lemon8, as well as TikTok. And if you're interested in one-on-one coaching, I will have all the links below for you to check it out and connect with me. So with that, I will talk to you next Wednesday.